Hello everyone, thank you so much for clicking on today's video and welcome back to my channel. Honestly, I say this about nearly every single relationship Reddit post, but this one is an emotional roller coaster in that it keeps getting worse and worse and worse as the story goes on. I do hope that you enjoy this story. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. Anyway, onto the story. My fiance, who's a 25-year-old male, and I, a 25-year-old female, have been together for about 4 years, and everything has been great up until now. We've always been in agreement about our lives and what we want for the future. Finances has always been one thing that we agreed on the most. For example, monthly budgets, not buying excessively, and living within our means, etc. And finances included the wedding. He's always known from early on that I love big weddings and have always wanted to have one, and that would be an area that I would splurge a little on. He was always supportive of this and in agreement with me and said that he'd like one too. In October, we got engaged and things were great until we started planning the wedding. We were just getting the basics done and mainly doing research into prices, and we discovered that we didn't have quite as much money as we would like to have for a big wedding, and we were both disappointed, but we started looking at how we could scale back and stretch our budget in the most efficient way possible. Then, in the beginning of November, my parents gave us a hefty sum of money for the wedding and all of the other expenses to go along with it, including the honeymoon and the engagement party and the bridal shower. All of the good stuff we weren't going to get to have before on our budget, and possibly even have some left over. The only thing that we would have to pay for on our own would be our bachelor or bachelorette parties. We were insanely excited and grateful, and my fiance even commented that now we could have quote-unquote the wedding of our dreams, and we went planning on our merry, excited way. At Thanksgiving, my fiance went to visit his family on the opposite side of the country, but I wasn't able to go with him. When he came back from the trip, he seemed standoffish about the wedding and pretty much stopped helping me plan it. When I asked him why, he said that he was just tired and I let it go. Then when he got back into helping me plan it, he was suddenly against having a big wedding, despite what we'd previously talked about and planned. He said that having a large wedding seemed like, quote-unquote, an annoying waste of money, which was news to me because he'd always been excited about having said wedding. Then it progressed to him saying that having a big wedding would make his family uncomfortable and make them feel out of place because they didn't grow up with or around lots of quote-unquote grand things. He also said that his family wouldn't be able to fly out for the wedding, so I proposed that we take some of our money out of the big wedding and have another much smaller ceremony and reception where his family would be comfortable and within a reasonable driving distance. He said no, F that, let's just have a smaller wedding to begin with. When I asked why, he would never give me a legit reason. He would always dance around the subject and cause an argument that was off topic from the wedding. We stopped planning the wedding and things were pretty strained for the next little bit of time up until Christmas. We flew out to see his family, and they weren't very welcoming towards me at all. Christmas Day was basically just them being condescending about the budget and wedding in general, including opening presents where they would make comments about if it was good enough for me, which was shocking because that's never been an issue in any interaction we've ever had or in my life in general. The whole day just basically went like that. When we got back to our hotel, I asked my fiance what the F that was all about. He pretended not to know for a while, and then he told me that when he went for Thanksgiving, he told them about the wedding budget, and they said that it was too much for a wedding, and they didn't want to come because they felt like it would be uppity, flashy, and arrogant. When I asked him if he defended what was originally our plan, he exploded and told me that he felt like the big wedding budget was materialistic and ridiculous. When I asked how it was materialistic, he said that it just was and that he was sick of my materialistic behavior. Again, I asked him what he meant by that, and he said that me liking high-end stuff and getting my nails and hair done was materialistic behavior. This confused me too because while I like nice things, it's never been a requirement, and I don't demand that everything I have be expensive and high-end, and I don't care about how much money a person has or makes or anything like that. Plus, when I do buy stuff for myself, it's from my own personal money in my own bank account that I deposit money in after all of the bills and necessities with my fiancé have been taken care of. I've never once asked my fiancé or anyone else to pay for any of the stuff, and me spending money from that account isn't a regular occurrence whatsoever. My fiancé even has his own separate account for things that he wants and likes too. Then he jumped back to the wedding and said that he finds it quote-unquote stupid and irresponsible to spend thousands of dollars on one day just to get a piece of paper that we could get at a courthouse. He also kept mentioning that we could spend the money quote-unquote elsewhere. When I asked him what he meant by elsewhere, he didn't have an answer and just kept saying that we could spend it on better things like a new house or cars or something. We bought a nice house about 2 years ago, so that argument was out. We have nice running cars, so that was out. And we can't have kids, so that's out too. And when I brought all of that up to him, he just stormed out. We're back home now and we haven't talked about it because every time that I bring it up, he gets pissed and storms out of the room and shuts me down. His behavior in this whole situation and lack of communication with me makes me nervous because something is going on, but I don't know what. If he keeps continuing this way, I don't want to get married to him because I don't know if our future would be like this, but with other things. It's not about wanting the wedding. It's just his attitude and the way that he's gone about everything. OP then added a relevant comment in the post where she clarified, I tried asking if we could fly them out. He said no. I tried asking about moving the location to a more neutral one. He said no. I asked about scaling back the wedding. He didn't answer yes or no, but started an argument. When I asked him what he wanted, he evaded the question and started another argument, and that's when I asked about the smaller ceremony, which he also didn't want. About 2 days after I made my first post, my fiancé and I got into a really huge argument, and I figured out that he did want to send the money to his family. He came home and I told him that we were going to talk about what was going on, and this time, no amount of arguing was going to change the subject. As soon as I said that, we started arguing again. He kept telling me that the money should be used elsewhere. I told him that my parents gave us the money solely for the wedding, and that any money that we didn't use was going back to them, unless they just insisted that we keep it. End of story. He demanded that we just ask my parents if we could keep the money and put it towards other uses. And I told him that I wasn't going to do that, and especially if he wouldn't even tell me what those other uses were. He finally broke down and said that it was wrong to have a big wedding when his family could use the money for more practical and useful things. When I asked him what those things were, he meant sending his brother to the college of his dreams, out of state. He said that over Thanksgiving, when he was with his family, he was telling them about the wedding and the money that my parents had given us, which honestly really wasn't necessary and shouldn't have been discussed in the first place. And his family started telling him about the college his brother wanted to go to and how they couldn't afford it, and felt really bad for limiting him. Then, according to my fiancé, they began asking him how he could go through with the wedding using all of the money that could be used to help pay for some of his brother's schooling and take some of the weight and stress off of their shoulders. He started feeling guilty, and they pointed the blame towards me, and because he didn't want to feel guilty, he went along with it and basically agreed with them and told them that they were right when they said that they didn't want to come to a wedding and support someone who didn't want to help them. Just conveniently leaving out the fact that I had no clue how bad their financial situation was, and also that the wedding was a mutual decision. He said that the reason that he was so standoffish and kept lashing out at me whenever I tried to talk to him about it was because he felt bad that he changed our plans without talking to me and let me quote-unquote take the blame for something that really shouldn't have involved blame in the first place. When we started discussing why he didn't tell me all of this and apologize from the very beginning when all of it happened, he just said that he didn't feel like it and was going to try to find out a way that he could use some of the money while also giving us both a wedding that we were content with. I was, and still am, furious that not only was he okay with throwing me under the bus, but also hiding huge expenses from me, so willing to change our plans without so much as mentioning it to me, and was willing to insult, berate, and hurt me to get his way. When I told him how I felt about all of that, he actually said that he was sorry about that, but was happy that he told me so that I could see his side, and that we could compromise by cutting back the wedding and take the rest of the money and put it towards his brother. I guess he felt like I would change my mind about everything now that he'd come clean about everything. But when I told him that the money was still absolutely going back to my parents, he got pissed again because, according to him, they didn't need it anyways. We got into an even bigger argument about everything, and we decided to call the wedding off indefinitely until we can sort everything out. But right now, I'm not even 100% sure that I want to go through with the marriage at all, especially if this is going to be what our future holds. Since the last update, my fiancé and I were trying to resolve things and even got into 2 therapy sessions, and it seemed like things were looking up and we were on our way to repairing our relationship, even though it was a slow process. We went in for our 3rd therapy session and started discussing in deeper details more about his family and the money issues. We were talking through it, and he still didn't understand why we couldn't take the money that my parents gave us and help his brother because it technically was a gift. When I told him again that we weren't using the money for anything other than the wedding, if we even have a wedding, and I suggested that we use our personal money if we were going to help them, he completely ignored the last part and started telling me how selfish my family was because we were unwilling to help his family. He'd never asked for serious help for his family before, and when he even asked at all, I helped them. When I pointed the fact that all he had to do was ask, but he never did, he said that he shouldn't have to ask for help for his family, but that I should see that they were struggling and want to help them instead of having to be asked. When I told him that I couldn't read his mind, we got into a huge argument in the therapist office, and he stormed out in the middle of the session. I followed him out and we argued more in the car. Then when we got back to the house, we continued arguing, and he said that he fought so hard for his family because his brother was, according to him, the last chance that they had. When I asked him what that meant, he said that I should be trying to help them too, as it would be the least I could do, since his brother was basically their only chance at expanding the family, since I couldn't have kids. Then we got into a completely different argument about kids and how I can't have them. Before we even started seriously dating, we talked about kids, and before we found out that I couldn't have them, we both agreed that we didn't want them, whether they were adopted or not. Then we found out that I couldn't have them for medical reasons, and we talked about it again, and we were both in the agreement that we still didn't want them. Apparently, his parents had been pressuring him about that too, but again, instead of talking to me, he thought I'd change my mind later down the road. We got into a really awful argument, and the worst one that we've ever had, and it got physical. I kicked him out, and we officially ended our relationship the day after. I'm not sure what we're going to do about the house situation. It's in my name, but he doesn't really have anywhere to go. But I do know that our relationship is over for now, if not forever. OP then went on to clarify, we both got physical with one another. He threw a glass at me, so I threw one back, and then he grabbed me and threw me on the ground, and I kicked him to make him let me go. We were both wrong, and it never should have happened. So guys, what did you think about this? As I mentioned in the beginning, honestly, it kept getting worse and worse and worse. So there was a lot of things going on, right? You had manipulation, you had guilt, you had a lack of communication, and towards the end there was also some physical abuse. Now, I don't know about you, but I felt like the lack of communication was really the thing that started this all. Okay, for the record, can I just say that I'm so glad that she broke up with him? But if Hopi's boyfriend had been sincere and actually talked with OP about everything that was happening, I think that even if the situation would have ended with them parting ways, it wouldn't have gotten as ugly. Do you know what I mean? Anyhow, I do hope that you enjoyed this story. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe if you'd like more stories from Reddit with updates.